Are we live yet? I think we're
We
live.
are live.
I think we're
Good
live.
afternoon, everybody. Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm back, everybody. I know you missed me.
She's back.
Yeah, I was poorly sick
She's
last
back.
week, but I'm here now, which is all that counts. I'm sorry to make it so that Peter was paying attention to you last week.
Peter who? Peter who?
Who even likes Pete? Who even likes Peter? Who even likes him? So whilst people are kind of signing on, just to let you guys know, we're going to be talking about comfort zones today, obviously, as you can see down here. And we're going to have a bit of backwards and forwards between Mike and myself, as we normally do. But then at the end, Mike does have 3 strategies that you can use to actually help move out of your comfort zone. Isn't that not right, Mike? Yes, he's very happy about it. So make sure you stick around for that. But until then, whilst people are just logging on, maybe you've noticed our festive attire today. Look at this. Yeah.
I've just caught the green screen now. Oh no.
Yeah. But between there's 3, we've got 3 LinkedIn lives between now and the end of the year when we break up for Christmas. And I decided that there will be a battle. Mike, I hope you're aware of this. A battle about who's wearing the best jumper each time. Now, I mean, feel free to let us know in the comments who you think's winning. But I might concede this battle to you. Who can resist a bulldog in a Christmas hat?
I'm going in strong on the first one, but we are going to talk about comfort zones. We're just waiting for people to join. It's not the whole thing isn't about jumpers, just so as you know.
Could be.
Just so as everyone knows.
But yeah, I think you've won the war on this one. So, I mean, do you think we're ready?
Let's go. Come on, let's go.
All right. So, as I mentioned, we are obviously going to be talking about comfort zones today. Why are we talking about comfort zones, Mike?
Well, yeah. Hello, John. Yeah, beautiful people. I like that. Yeah, beautiful people, beautiful jumpers. Who wins with the jumper stakes? So I think that might be me. Well, we're talking about it because basically, I put a post up on LinkedIn a wee while ago, just asking for people what piece of advice they'd give a younger version of themselves, just starting off, that they'd learned, during their lives. Oh, look, wait a minute. Before we
okay. Well, I've got to, yeah, okay. There we go. This is my jumper. And then
so you can vote anytime you like. Anyway, so we put this poll out and lots of really good advice. In fact, I'll put a link to it in the comments so that you can see. But one of the things that came out time and time again was, I wish I'd have moved outside of my comfort zone more, basically. That was the thing. So I thought, well, that's a really interesting subject to debate, because basically nothing great grows in your comfort zone. I mean, I made that point in the email earlier, so that went out to invite you to this thing. So I just think it was a great subject to debate, basically.
Okay. Now, in that post, you mentioned something about a traumatic event. Now, I obviously know what it is because I'm your daughter. Are you willing to share that traumatic event with the group?
Well, I am, because 5 minutes ago we discussed it and you said, will you do this? And I said, yes.
I know, but it made me sound so sensitive and polite.
Yeah, so professional, really. What happens if I do this?
No, I don't like this.
Okay. Yes, of course. So years ago, when we set up a business, I used to be a computer programmer, actually. I know a lot of people don't believe that, but I was. And the sandals, the jumper, the kind of long hair and the parker and the thermos flask, the whole deal, really. Very introverted, wouldn't say boo to a goose. Got invited to join a company with another couple of guys, and we set this business up. And the person running it, Mike Sparks, his name was, he was the big cheese. He'd been in recruitment for a long time. He was well thought of, really great reputation out there, and I loved working for him. Although, as it turned out, we were equal partners, really, which was good of him. Anyway, so 18 months in, November the 6th, he died in a car accident. And so that morning I'd got up and my world was such that I was comfortable in it, and I did my thing and he did his thing and everything was fine. When I went to bed later that night, in fact, I didn't really go to bed later that night, as it turned out, but when I finally did go to sleep in the chair, everything had changed for me, and my comfort zone had been bulldozed into the ground. I couldn't even see. It was as big as New Mexico. It was huge in comparison to what it had been, and I think that sudden traumatic event changed everything for me. And the strategies I'm going to share with you later are the ones that I used to get through that. So that was the bottom line, really, I suppose.
Yeah, I know, obviously, when something like that happens, it's.
I don't know who that is, but I don't like them. So, come on. Oh no, who is that?
So Mike, when you have obviously you were pushed outside your comfort zone, you were pushed, kicked, thrown as far as it could be. In a weird way, whilst the event itself obviously was horrific, do you think it's sometimes easier to grow your comfort zone when you're pushed rather than choosing to walk out? You know what I mean? It's so much more terrifying to sort of go, I'm gonna push myself rather than some external thing.
It's the difference, I think, between getting into the Irish Sea a step at a time and leaping into it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the leaping into it is a short, sharp shot. But once you've leapt off, that's it. There's no going back. You're hurtling into the sea. Whereas getting in little bit by little bit is kind of more painful. But given the two, when it comes to comfort zones, I think little and often. I mean, I do think that it is important to gradually extend your comfort zone a bit at a time. I wouldn't want anybody to go through that traumatic event that I went through. I wonder, could you put in the comments if you too have not had a traumatic event like that necessarily, but have been forced out of your comfort zone? Just put yes or no. It'd be great if you could just tell us a little bit about that, but don't be too concerned if you can't.
Yeah. I mean, so when it comes to that, are you saying that you should constantly be moving your comfort zone like every day, or there should never be a time when you're sort of in your comfort zone just chilling? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think there's a prescription for that. I don't think there's a prescription for it, in the sense that I think it depends on your circumstances, what you're doing in your life. I just think push yourself regularly, really. And there is a strategy to get around this I'm going to share later, but actually that's how you grow, because nothing does grow in your comfort zone. So you kind of have to get out there to make any significant change. Yeah. That's what I think anyway. I mean, what do you think? You've worked for me long enough, and you've been put in positions where your comfort zone is a distant blob on the horizon. So what do you reckon then?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, it's very different, I think, when you work with someone who's your father, who's well as your boss, because my comfort zone probably better than most bosses would know. But I think for me, there's definitely been discussions. I think if I really went, Mike, I'm not doing that, no, you probably would have listened to me. But yeah, there was a lot of times when you sort of said, just do it, you'll be fine, you'll be all right, go on, you'll be sound, you'll be sweet. But what I would like to say is that when those were happening, is that we're talking about work comfort zones, obviously, but work isn't everything in everybody's life. You could be moving out your comfort zone in your health. You could be moving out your comfort zone in your education. You could be moving out your comfort zone in a relationship. So there are so many different places. So we're not just saying that you constantly have to be moving outside all comfort zones at all times. Is that sometimes, your work comfort zone might be static for a couple of weeks or months.
I'd go so far as to say I definitely wouldn't do that, actually, because it's just too much. And you made an interesting point there, actually. I think I haven't got many talents. And as Steve Jennings, my friend who pointed out the code, fair enough, Steve, busted, would attest, I don't have many talents, really. And COBOL wasn't one of them. However, what I can do is judge how far you can push people. I don't mean push in an exploitive way, but push them outside their comfort zone. I've always been reasonably good at that. And I think you have to respect people's hard boundaries. There are certain things I know with you that I could not ask you to do, and others that you'd be uncomfortable, but I know you could do. And at the end of it, I know you're glad you did do. And so that as a leader, when you're working with people, I think that's a really important point, is to make sure that, you do understand where the hard boundaries are. Otherwise, you're going to cause a whole world of pain for people.
Okay, so on that point, as a leader, so you're a leader of a team, and say you've got, a couple of people on your team, and you want to help them grow. You want them to help them move outside their comfort zone, but they are digging in their heels, like they are, fighting you every step of the way. What can you do to help your team grow if they don't appear to want to do that?
Okay, that's an interesting question, and I think the answer is actually, when you think about it, fairly straightforward. If you're sitting in appraisals or reviews, or you're having discussions with people and they want to get on, they want to earn more money or be promoted or get a bigger job or whatever it is that they want, then by default, they have to go into outside their comfort zone.
Yeah.
if you think about it, it's obvious, because you've got to go and do new things which are strange to you and weird and a bit stressful, and you might fail. And if you fail, people will point their finger at you and a whole bunch of other things that don't really matter at all. And so therefore they have to move out their comfort zone. So I think you kind of need an agreement with them. Alan Kenny calls it an emotional agreement, where you basically say, well, okay, if you want this, you've got to do that. And I know that feels a bit weird, but I'm with you.
Right.
I mean, I hope that you've never felt abandoned whenever we've done things together. I'll let you do things, obviously, but I'm always there.
Yeah.
And I think the same goes for Peter, except apparently there he is. So apparently, yes, he has moved out.
Those bosses?
I think I am one of those bosses, really. Yeah, I've got a better one here from Nigel, actually. But I think this knowing your people and knowing where their comfort zones are, and then getting a buy-in to say, well, you're going to have to change, and this is what we're going to have to do together. Then if they choose not to do that, or if they're uncomfortable or complain, well, it's fine, but what you were saying is, I don't want to move forward, because that is what you're saying. Whereas if you want to move forward, kind of, this is how it's done. I think the big question, the enabler, in a sense, is how much effort and support that you will give somebody. If you just put somebody in an uncomfortable situation, like my father apparently learned to swim because his friend pushed him in the reservoir at Cheslin.
Yeah, I heard that.
And I mean, he could have drowned, but he didn't. He swam to this. But a lot of people don't make it, so I wouldn't do that, and I certainly wouldn't recommend, having been in a traumatic situation. I'm sure that Nigel wouldn't if he had his time back again. And by the way, just so as you know, yeah, okay.
I think I'd look spiffing.
Ever the diplomat.
Just saying, I think I'd look spiffing in that jumper. Yeah.
Ever the diplomat. Anyway, so I think it is important. Many people watching this want to move outside their comfort zone themselves. I think the same applies, except with you, just be harsher with your hard borders. What you think is a hard border probably isn't, actually.
Yeah.
Push yourself a little bit. Maybe get a coach or something, or someone, a colleague or a mentor or something to help you with that. That would help to kind of push you to the absolute limits, and then you'll progress. That's how it works.
And do it just baby steps, little steps. Don't do a long jump outside of your comfort zone or do a bungee jump off it. You do it little increments, little baby steps. Especially if you're doing it with a team, I imagine. Yeah,
it's worth remembering what Peter said. Really, you kind of getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think since that happened to me, that was November 6, 1990, long time ago now. Since that happened, I've constantly been moved out my comfort zone by myself. Normally, just put myself in a position because I needed to do something, even doing silly things like this, appearing on video. Do you remember the first time you videoed me when Dick Davenport came round?
Yes, it was, I believe, about 10 o'clock in the morning, 10:30 in the morning. And after 2 takes of you messing up, you requested a large glass of red wine, I think.
Yeah. It was about 10:30, wasn't it, or something? I don't know, whatever it was. Yeah. I was so nervous and so freaked by the whole situation, but you kind of have to do it. I knew I needed to do it, so I did it. It took me ages to get used to it, but I don't care at all now about being on camera. But I think it's the smaller areas, really, isn't it, that you're looking for? It's not like one big thing. And first of all, 18 months ago, I was a programmer. Then I was a junior salesperson. Now I'm the MD. In the space of 18 months, it wasn't like that. It's just the small things that happen, mainly, that you need to deal with, I think. Yeah, and I think maybe, especially when we're doing the video, that certain things were controlled. Is that not everybody was seeing you make this mistake. You started outside your comfort zone in a private place and in a controlled way with guidance, and then you sort of grew it out. So it's that maybe start with smaller things and then grow outwards. Okay, all right. So I think so. Just before we go on, I want to put a question out to people. Do people have tactics to either move themselves or their people out of comfort zones? Certainly, if you're a manager, you must use some mechanism to help people to do things that they don't believe that they can do in. I'd like you to share those on comments if you can. That would be great. Yeah. Well, with that, whilst everyone else is sort of sharing theirs, Mike, we've spoken about these 3 strategies. We've spoken about what we could do. Will you now share with us your 3 strategies for expanding your comfort zone? Yeah, it's a weird thing, really, isn't it? Because they don't sound very much. They're really simple. Really, one sentence each, so it doesn't sound very much. Changed my life, and it's funny because Pete was just putting these things into the banner, so I don't have to type them as we go through. And he said, the 3 things, it's the 3 things, isn't it? I said, yeah. And you know what they are as well, because you hear them all the time from me. And it's something that I use all the time and it feels right for me. You might look at them and think, well, is that it? and I'm sorry, but I'm telling you, if you embrace what they stand for, it makes a difference. Okay, let's look at the first one. So on that first day, I went into the office. So Mike had died the day before. I went into the office. People started to come in. We had a few, probably 12 staff, I think. Most of them were working out on client sites. We had a couple of people in the office, and I went in absolutely shell-shocked. I can't tell you how stressed I was. Lost my friend, my colleague. I honestly thought I was going to lose my house, and we were going to have to go and live with grandma. Yes.
No.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yes. Yes.
God bless. Rest her
Lovely
soul.
person, but we didn't want to live there.
No.
So I'm really, really, in fact, all of the success of software knowledge was down to your grand, actually. But I needed to kind of get on top of this. So, and I was like freaking out. People are looking at me. Lily, well, what are we going to do now then? It's like, okay. Do you know, by the way, the first decision I made?
Yes.
We'll collect stamps for charity. Yes, honestly, they put a load of mail. We used to have like mail in those days. Put a lot of mail on my desk, and they got stamps. I thought, I know what we'll do. And that's the first decision I ever made when I was in charge. But my PA came in to see me, and I was like, I said, I don't think I could do this. And she said this. She said that. Well, how hard can it be? And we just talked for a little while about it. So we just talked about, well, what exactly have you got to do then? And I just began to talk about what Mike used to do and what I've got to do, as well as what I already do. And there's quite a lot of it. But actually, when you break it down into small chunks, there was nothing that was that hard, really. There were areas that I didn't know what to do, but I knew people who did. And actually, when I broke it down, how hard can anything be, really? The video all those years ago when I was drinking wine on the first video, it's a good idea, actually, Chris. Can we bring that back? I like that, actually. I might have wine on these shows, actually. Anyway,
maybe sherry.
How hard can it be? How hard can it be? And when she said that to me, she said two things. That was the first one, and the second one in a minute. That made a big difference, because we went through it, and actually it wasn't as bad as I first thought. So that first strategy or tactic or whatever would be to break down whatever it is that you're uncertain of into its constituent parts and try and figure out where the difficult part is. Where is the bit that actually is pushing you massively outside your comfort zone? Because generally speaking, there isn't one. Actually, it's not bad at all. We've had a comment come in, so let me just from Nigel again. That the why, really. And I think that's an important point, Nigel, because if you're tying the why back to what they want, something they want, you need to do this because to do what you want, you've got to be able to achieve this skill or experience. And to get that experience, it's not the skill, is it? Because you can learn a skill without moving outside your comfort zone. It's the experience to get you. If you want this experience, you've got to do this, and that's a bit scary, I know, but I'm there for you. So that's a very good point, actually. Thank you for that. Point number two. So the next thing I think is that I still suffer from this today, which is why I still say it to myself today. But it was like, well, what's the worst that can happen? And I know it's a simple thing to say, but you can imagine this saying to yourself, but really to other people, seriously, if you do this, what's the worst that can happen? And in those days when she said it to me, because I was saying about doing this, that, and the other, well, really, what is the worst that can happen? In fact, I can hear my mom saying the same thing to me when I was younger. But there is very little consequence that's going to be serious. If you don't die, you can recover from pretty much anything. That was pretty dark, pretty quick, wasn't it?
It was Christmas, so keep it light. But yeah, I mean, I know for a fact that Pete who works with us, he's a big fan of this.
That's your brother. It's your brother.
My brother. So when Pete and I, because we're moving forward about the company, about where we want it to go, and Pete's always like, well, if this happens, this happens, this happens, and I'm there going, I mean, that got real dark real quick, Pete. And he's like, yeah, but I feel better now. I'm like, well, I'm glad you do.
Hey, look, tackle this how you will.
Nth degree. But
tackle this how you will.
I think sometimes because it's a mixture of realizing that the worst really isn't that bad versus, well, I know that that's a potential and I can plan for it. You know
Since then, I've watched a Tim Ferriss video, which is a really cool video, and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. What he says when you're faced with these situations is, right, okay, 3 columns on a piece of paper. Write down in the first one all the things that could possibly happen, right? And put a percentage likelihood against them. Fairly straightforward. There aren't that many outcomes to any situation. This could happen, that could happen, the other could happen. In the second column, you write the consequences of each one of those things. And mostly when you look at the consequences, yeah, there might be some losing money, losing your business, yeah, but actually, mostly the biggest consequence is I might fail and look stupid.
Yeah, I might be embarrassed. Yeah.
Might be embarrassed. It might take longer, might cost me a bit of money, whatever. They're all recoverable and actually don't matter that much, to be honest. And then in the third column, you can write down what happens if you don't do it. What's the consequence of inaction? And quite often when you do that, actually you sort of think, well, oh no, I don't want that. Better do something then.
It's a very interesting point, because people don't realize that choosing to do nothing is still a choice. You know, you're choosing to move forward or choosing to stay static, but you're still making a choice one way or another. And so there are consequences to every single action. It's a good point, actually, that not changing doesn't change.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but you can't develop and move forward without changing. I mean, that's the point. Oh, that's just Pete's little comment there on.
I'm glad he finds it calming. I just, cry myself.
Yeah, Black Pete. Yeah, I'm going to go with that anyway.
But I think very often when you choose to stay the same, in actual fact, you end up going backwards because your competitors will choose to move forward.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah,
behind, don't you?
Yeah, nothing stands still, and you've only got to look at something like social media, which is what we all use. You constantly have to move forward, else you just get pushed into the backwater. You have to be at the latest edge. So I think this, what's the worst that can happen is a great question to ask yourself, but also other people, and get them to do. Let's just plot down what can happen. What are the outcomes in this situation? What are the consequences of those outcomes? Nothing really. How likely are they to happen? Very unlikely. Right. And what you'll find is the really, really unpleasant ones are very, very unlikely to happen. And if you listen to that all the time, if you just don't do things because there's a tiny chance that this might happen, quite frankly, I think, you probably won't do anything really. And then what I really liked when Tim Ferriss did it in his video was that piece around, well, if I don't change, this is what I get, or this is how I stay. And that's incredibly unpalatable. So I'll just do it anyway. What if someone said to me, when the pain of not doing something becomes greater than the pain of doing it, then you change. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of truth in that, actually.
Okay. And then the final one, I know what this third one is, because this third one is something that you said to me, I think it must have been in the first month of working for you. And it's, do you want me to say it, or do you want to say it? Well,
it's my best piece of advice to anybody that manages anybody else. And away you go, please do.
He said to me, there is nothing you can break that I can't fix. And he says to me regularly, as a matter of fact, every time I move out of my comfort zone.
And I'll tell you why that's important, right, from a manager's point of view, because basically what I'm saying there, well, actually, what do you think I'm saying there, Kirsty? What do you reckon when I say that to you?
Is nothing will go so wrong that it will destroy everything. Like, there is always a solution, and you will help me to find it, or you will do it by yourself.
So how does that make you feel then? Hey, I sound like a psychologist there. How does that make you feel?
I've been in therapy. It makes you feel a lot more confident. It feels like you've got a security blanket or like a safety net underneath you.
It's supposed to imbue confidence and a feeling that you're not alone. And also, I mean, I think this is, this is for me a big thing in management. Celebrate your failures. Let's not hide them or stray away from them. Let's look at them and think, great, that didn't go how we wanted it to. All right, fair enough. But what can we learn from that? Because that's how we're going to move forward. And I think as a manager, if you're moving people outside the comfort zone, then it's an encouragement to fail. I don't mean be reckless or not pay attention to detail or careless. I don't mean that. I mean, do the best you can. But if you fail, and you will, that's okay. Let's celebrate that we figured out how not to do something. Let's learn from it and move forward. And I think just saying this to people, and I do it all the time, there's nothing you can break that I can't fix. And there isn't really. Pretty much everything.
From death.
I suppose from death, I suppose. And I think, if you've set a client up, for example, that one of your staff can do or say something which would jeopardize that client, I'm telling you now, that relationship is not a good one. You need to deal with that because that's not going to work. It needs to be stronger than that. So there's nothing you can fix. There's nothing you can break that I can't fix. So if you put those three things together, how hard can it be? What's the worst that can happen? And there's nothing that you can break that I can't fix. I think you can say that to yourself. You can say it to other people. And for me, in terms of a strategy, I've used it for 30 years. And use it with you. And I know that you and Peter both say that to yourselves and when we talk about it. So I just think, what do you think, Kirsty? You're the beneficiary of it.
I think that's a very good level. But I would say with that one, everybody's level of stress is different. And it goes back to what you said before about knowing your people. You have to know your people because, yes, you should have somebody so that they know that productive is a key word and that everybody else's level of stress is different. But I really like that. But for me, I think they're very powerful as an employee. But it's that failure one is that, in fact, I don't really like the word failure. It's more of a lesson. It's you go, okay, well, that didn't work, so we've learned a lesson. So let's use.
Well, just before we round up, can I just interrupt because I know there's a lag, isn't there, on the comments coming through? Yeah. Bit of a lag. Can you just put what's the biggest takeaway from this session? Because we really wanted to put a lot of effort into this to try and make it simple and make it straightforward. And I do think. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for those few kind words. I do think it would be nice if you could just give us something you took away from it. You think, yeah, I'm going to use that. Anything you like, just put that down. Shall we summarize up? Yeah.
So essentially, we talked about comfort zones and how sometimes you are dragged out of your comfort zone and sometimes you choose to leave them. And there are many ways that you can do that by small at a time, but you should constantly be in your life expanding your comfort zone and helping it to grow, because growth is important in every area of your life.
And those of the people around you, if they want to progress.
Yeah. And as a leader, it is it's a teamwork thing, isn't it? It's you have to get the buy-in, you have that emotional contract with somebody to help them grow, and that's what you do together. Yes, I like that one. I like the big what choosing to do nothing is still a choice. I think that's an excellent point, Pete. Yeah.
Loving it here. I think that's an important point, really. And let me just pick up and go through those three things because they're so interesting, I think, for when you really dig into them, what they really mean. You know, how hot can it be? I think that's a great statement. What's the worst that can happen? And lastly, you know, let's face it, there's nothing you can break that I can't fix. Imbues confidence and a feeling of togetherness. We're in this together with the people that work for you, which I think is great. Oh, hi, Paul. Long time no see. Yeah.
The why are you doing it together? I
think that. there's a theme on the why, isn't there here?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, definitely.
I think that's really good.
Definitely a great idea. And then I think you've got one more. We've got a couple of people have really got a lot from this. It's really nice to hear.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Nigel. Yes. 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 Yeah. Well, what is the worst that can happen? Seriously, you know, it doesn't go as well. You just mentioned that thing to Michael as well, because we were talking about before we came on air about nobody knows you best or something. What you were saying? Oh, well, I can remember. She's looking dumbstruck there. She said if you go and do a presentation and you miss something out,
yeah. So if you're doing something and you're planning when you're rehearsing, you're planning to do it 100%, right? Well, nobody knows what your 100% looks like. So if you just do an average job, if you just do a good job, people are still going to be impressed by you. Just because it's not as perfect as you planned it to be doesn't mean that they see it as imperfect. Do you know what I mean? So that, to me, that's always powerful.
I think I'm going to end the show on that, actually. There's nothing you can fix which I can't break. Thank you, Nigel, for those few kind words. And thank you, Nigel's dad. Yeah. Okay, so that's it for this time. We have got 2 shows left before the end of the year. We're not sure what we're going to do next time, but the last show we're going to do at the end of the year, the 3 of us are going to be on, and it's Meet the Flair team. So you want to know anything about us or what we think about the world or anything personal that we've got,
what it's like working together, stuff like that,
anything at all, you know, we're going to remind people anyway, and as we go through. So please do feel free to send those in to us. There'll be plenty of opportunities, so do that.
And keep an eye out for the Christmas jumper competition, which will be continuing. I think we can agree this week. I think it's either a draw or Mike won, I think. Yeah,
you're just picking on what Nigel said. I've got no time for that. So
but next week, I'm going to absolutely destroy it. So thank you so much for everybody for joining in today and being so involved as well. It helps us to know that we're adding value and to sort of get your points of view and your opinions on things as well. Really helpful. So thank you so very much for joining today. Thank you, Mike, for sharing. I know today was sharing some things that perhaps weren't always comfortable, but thank you very much for that. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next time, guys. Take care. Bye.